I've wanted to do a custom mechanical keyboard build for a friend of mine for a while now, but I've always put it off for one reason or another. But then I had a set of keycaps show up that I thought really fit the vibe he was going for, so I knew it was the perfect time to finally do a build for him. That was a year ago. I've ended up liking the keyboard so much, I've just been coming up with excuses not to send it to him. What the heck am I gonna do? My friend Ryan has always appreciated the mechanical keyboard builds I've done, but whenever I make this suggestion to him of him getting his own, he usually mentions that he would rather spend the money on something like a graphics card or maybe a new cooler, non-aesthetic choices, which sounds like a much better use of your money rather than spending it on multiple custom mechanical keyboard builds like a crazy person. Then I was watching one of my favorite streamers on Twitch, and I overheard him typing on his keyboard, which was a Keychron Q2HE. And this thing sounded so amazing, I placed an order right that minute to get the ball rolling on this build for my friend. P.S. Keychron, you should really think about endorsing Zaryu. I can think of at least one person, me, that bought a keyboard directly from his endorsement. If we're building a keyboard, let's talk about it. This is the Keychron Q1HE. Now, Keychron's got a massive lineup of keyboards these days. Even I had a hard time figuring out what was what on their website. But the Q line is their most premium, with the QHE keyboards adding Hall effect switches to those keyboards. Being their top-of-the-line keyboard, I paid $220 on Amazon, and out of the box, it's got a very premium feel to it. It's a fully aluminum keyboard with a gasket-mounted design. The rest of the box contents are pretty standard. You get a USB-C cable, USB-A adapter, 2.4 gigahertz receiver with an extension, a hex screw, and a screwdriver, plus a combination keycap and switch puller. And yeah, this thing is beefy. It weighs just over 1,700 grams, and from what I can tell, there's no additional weights in the chassis. The bottom case is fully aluminum, save for the little cutout for the battery, and it feels solid. And being top of the line, it's fully featured with 2.4 gigahertz wireless and Bluetooth connectivity, per key RGB lighting, up to 1,000 hertz polling rate, combined with the Hall effect switches that make this an excellent gaming keyboard. A set of pretty great sounding screw-in stabilizers and pretty standard double shot PBT keycaps. So the star of the show here are the Keychron Nebula double rail magnetic switches. These switches are magnetic. They don't actually have a mechanical leaf inside of them. Instead, they use magnets and a little sensor that detects how far away the switch actually is from the sensor. In the most simplest terms, think of magnetic switches as being a volume slider instead of a regular switch being like an on-off switch. This allows for some really cool customization. You can set actuation points instead of just relying on what the switch comes with out of the box. So if the switch feels too light or you suffer from accidental key presses, you can make the actuation point a little lower to give yourself the tactile response that you want. You can even change it per key. So the keys towards the outside of your hand that you might have a hard time hitting, like say with your pinky, you can set those actuation points to be a little bit lighter so you don't have to push them down as hard. Possibilities really are endless, and you really can do any kind of customization you want. You can add multiple different keystrokes to the same key depending on how far down you press. And while I did try this out, it's a little too crazy for me, but it does work really well. But my favorite part about these switches are the way they sound. I'm not sure if the lack of a leaf makes these things sound unlike any other switch I've had before. They have a real deep thought to them, and thanks to the crazy amount of padding, they have this real light, snappy clack to them, and that's really what I enjoy. They almost sound like they have a real poppy tactile bump to them, the way you'd hear in like early Holy Pandas, which is really strange coming from a linear switch. They're also crazy smooth. When it comes to smoothness, Keychron are kind of my favorite switches, and these Nebulas are really no exception. This keyboard is just really great all around. It achieves something I think Keychron is really good at that I don't think other companies do very well. It pretty seamlessly combined enthusiast-level keyboard features with features that also appeal to gamers. A lot of companies have tried pretty unsuccessfully to appeal to the entire mech keyboard market, which doesn't really work because there's very little overlap. If you're a developer doing data entry, any kind of writer, chances are you care about three things: typing feel, sound profile, and simple aesthetics. This keyboard doesn't feature any of those gaudy aesthetics companies seem to feel like gamers are really going for. Companies like Razer and Corsair are pretty guilty of this, although these days they have kind of toned that stuff down. Razer even released a line of pro-grade peripherals with like ProType Ultra and ProClick 2. And Logitech does a pretty good job of maintaining both a gamer product line and a professional line. But they're two very separate products, although I do think stuff like the G Pro Superlight wouldn't be super out of place in an office setting. But I don't know a single gamer that goes for that like tech core aesthetic. They do care about things like 1000 Hz polling rate, macro control, and Hall effect switches. Something that I think is pretty easy to implement into pretty simple design aesthetics. And of course, you have the often neglected Mac users, of which I'm one. And we have so few options available for things like keycaps, forget native software support, that practically everyone on the Mac setup subreddit has an Apple Magic keyboard, a Logitech keyboard, or a Keychron. It's one of those areas I think Keychron really excels at, and I wish more companies did it. I don't think it's that difficult to add a few extra keycaps in the bag, plus add additional support for Mac OS and software. But other than that, this keyboard is just really good. It's the best sounding production keyboard I've had on my desk in a really long time. If I'm nitpicking, I do wish the USB port was in the middle. It isn't, and I'm guessing that's because they wanted the area around the middle for the Wi-Fi antenna. And yeah, I mentioned, I'm not the biggest fan of their keycaps, but those can easily be changed. Everything comes at a cost though, and I mentioned that the Q series from Keychron seems to be their most premium lineup of keyboards. And the Q1HE comes in at a pretty steep $239. That's more or less the same with the rest of the keyboards in the QHE line. The only really difference between the Q1 and say the Q3 are the form factors. Keychron offers everything from a 60% up to a full size. But they do have their KHE series, which seems to ditch the full aluminum, adds wooden side panels, which seems pretty popular these days, but keeps important stuff like full wireless connectivity and Bluetooth, but it knocks $100 off that price tag. So if you don't want to drop $250, you can pick up something like K8HE, that's their TKL version, for only $129. And I've heard the K versions of their Hall effect keyboards, and they sound just as good as the one I've got here. Keychron really does amazing work. I was shocked at how much I love this keyboard, but therein lies the problem. I ended up liking this keyboard way too much. I bought this to build and send to him for his birthday. That was back in April. It's November now. This thing has been sitting on my desk since then. I feel horrible. So to try and absolve myself, I've been telling myself, oh, I need to make a video first before I can send it to him. And well, obviously I've been putting that off for a long time. Well, now that I'm making the video, I can finally complete the build, which uses Glorious's GPBT Kabuto set. And that's pretty much it. I didn't change anything else on this board except maybe add a little bit of lube to the stabilizers. And I turned off the RGB lighting because that's not really my thing. Stuff like that is super easy to configure in Keychron's default web interface. It makes changing any settings like the Hall effect switches super easy. And yeah, that's it. I guess I'm gonna have to go back to one of my many custom mechanical keyboards now. If I'm being honest, I'm probably gonna miss the wireless connectivity the most. I don't have any regular wireless mechanical keyboards. And I've got some stuff planned for the future that you'll see in future videos that the wireless connectivity was really going to be perfect for. So I might have to pick up another one of these. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. I've got some cool videos coming out. Yeah, let me know what you think of Keychron keyboards. Leave a comment below if you've got one, if you like the sound profile. Are there any other companies that make really good, simple keyboards that also appeal to gamers? Let me know. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks. I'll catch you guys in the next one.